Welcome to the Well Woman Show, where we use intersectional feminism, mindfulness, leadership, and strategy to support smart women to change the world without anxiety, insecurity, and burnout. On the show, we challenge the status quo and support you to unlearn harmful messages that keep you playing small so you can activate your superpowers and live with joy, confidence, and ease. I'm your host, Giovanna Rossi. Hello, Well Women. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, regular listeners. And if you're new here, I want to give you a great big welcome. You are in the right place if you are a woman with a mission, if you sometimes overdo it with all of your ambition and desires and dreams, and you just want some support to kind of pull it all together and excel and enjoy your life. And so on the Well Woman Show, we define wellness pretty broadly. We basically include everything that impacts your life. So that includes all of the different areas of your life, your relationships, your impact, your influence, your prosperity, your well-being, spirituality. And so I'm feeling rather hopeful today, because if you're listening to the show as it publishes, today was the inauguration of the very first woman of color, person of color, to be in the vice president's office in the United States. And so it's a really big deal, and we have a lot of work ahead of us in terms of the systems and the structures that are not working for most people. But it is a day to celebrate and to have hope for showing future generations that change is possible, that growth is possible. If we apply that to ourselves individually, we can look at ourselves and say, change is possible, growth is possible. And we can not only shatter glass ceilings that exist externally, but we can also shatter internal glass ceilings and really move beyond our deep assumptions of limitations that we've held for so long and explore an opening to create a bigger vision for ourselves and our communities and our families. So with that, I want to play you the poem that Amanda Gorman, the National Youth Poet Laureate, recited at the Biden-Harris inauguration. And I won't say much about it now. I'll come back afterwards with a few comments. Here's Amanda Gorman.
Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. In the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is hours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it in its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the wind-swept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
We'll be right back. Join me on December 30th for my free year-end event inside the Well Woman Academy. It's at 12 o'clock Mountain, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. UK time. And if you're a woman who needs to release 2020, that would be most of us, and really power up for 2021, then this is for you. At this event, we'll celebrate and release what we don't need anymore from 2020, and we'll reconnect to our superpowers, learn to turn our weaknesses into our strengths, and set our intentions for 2021. This is an assets-based process, recognizing our power and revealing possibilities for ourselves that we can't see through the fog right now. At the Well Woman Academy, we're breaking through barriers and creating the lives we truly desire with less anxiety and burnout. Head over to wellwomanlife.com/free event to register. We're back on the Well Woman Show. Okay, we just heard Amanda Gorman, the National Youth Poet Laureate, reciting her poem at the Biden-Harris inauguration, January 20th, 2021, a day that is a historical day that we will remember for a long time to come. I, for one, grabbed my daughter out of class and made sure she watched with me. Also, my son. I wanted to make sure that they, experienced and witnessed the first Black South Asian woman to become vice president, and truly an historic event and day that we'll be celebrating. So with that, I'd like to reflect a little bit on the poem that you just heard and just pose a few questions for you. You know, we saw today a glass ceiling being shattered externally with the first woman becoming vice president of the United States. But I want to talk a little bit about internal glass ceilings, or these sort of limitations that we set on ourselves because of lack, fear, and other, mindset and systemic influences that create these limitations for ourselves. And so, in January, we've been doing all this work all month long on really visioning and dreaming big, like what do we want to create for our lives? If you don't have the Power Up workbook yet, I highly encourage you to go get that. You can find it on the website, wellwomanlife.com/234show. It walks you through a series of questions and activities that really help you with this whole notion of, really releasing before we can power up. And so I wanted to talk a little bit more about that today in terms of looking at our limitations, because we can't actually envision or dream about our biggest potentials if we are still coming from a place of lack and fear. And so I would like for us to address those limitations before we pile on our vision boards and our goals and all of these things, because you are only going to be able to create goals at the level that your limitations allow you, right? So if we have these limitations, your goals will reflect that limited thinking and those limited possibilities. So what we want to do is shatter that internal glass ceiling and really open that up to a bigger possibility in all areas of your life, but certainly in the areas that you're called to work on this year, whether it's relationships or impact, influence, confidence, prosperity, spirituality, health and well-being, whatever the area is that you're called to work on. And it could be more than one area. I don't want you setting goals while you're in limited thinking, in a limited thinking space. So when our limits are set too low, when we can't move beyond a certain place in terms of our thinking, our potential, our possibility, our goals, it's usually because our potential for that is higher than we're expressing. So there's an imbalance, right? We have limited thinking, yet we have such potential, and we feel that potential. We know we have it. And so there's this kind of disconnect. And so that creates a whole lot of patterns that are not helpful. And I won't get into all of that right now, but what we want to do is kind of break open those limitations so that you can envision from a place of really believing in yourself and really believing in your potential, so that when you write out your goals, they're really in line with your potential. They're not at a more limited, lower level thinking. I'd like you to think about a few questions. The first one is, what can I appreciate in the area of my life that's causing me pain or anxiety right now? What can I appreciate? What is good already in this area? And this is not just another roll your eyes gratitude practice. This truly is embodying what you already appreciate, which is going to generate that positive, joyful feeling about that area of your life. And looking at about 18 months out ahead of you, what do you envision? in this area of your life? And asking yourself that from a place of appreciation and gratitude. So, looking out about 18 months ahead, what do you envision in 18 months in this area of your life? And how can I be brave this year? How can I be brave this year? What is possible for me? And just jot down your answers to these questions. And a couple more questions. What can I see? You know, the poet that we just heard ends her poem with, "There is always light if only we are brave enough to see it, if only we are brave enough to be it." So what can you see? What can you see? And who can you be? Who can you step into and be? Who do you need to be this year in order to fulfill your potential? I'd love to hear from you. If you want to drop me a line, info@wellwomanlife.com. You can also join our conversation in the community group at wellwomanlife.com/community. And if you're ready to join the Academy, where we dig into all of these questions and more, and you get coaching from me, head over to wellwomanlife.com/academy. I hope you have a wonderful week. That's it for our show today. Remember, if you need support to live your Well Woman life, head over to wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join our community. As a reminder, we are on NPR every week, so be sure to tune in at npr.org/podcasts and search for The Well Woman Show. If you enjoyed today's show, please take a moment and subscribe and leave a review. This helps raise visibility, which is super helpful when it comes to producing the show every week. For feedback, comments, or just to let me know you were listening, find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Well Woman Life. I'm Giovanna Rossi for The Well Woman Show. Until next time, have a super powerful week.